Hi, everybody. Welcome to the MPH information session during Harvard Chan's Virtual Visit Week for fall 2022. My name is Emily Davies. I'm the Assistant Director of the MPH program, and I'm so excited that you're all able to join us today for this session. I'm also joined here today by several of my colleagues who work with the MPH program, including Anna Capinti, Megan Karen, Stephanie Lemoyne, Liz Rao, and Nkwanzi Sibidi. So we're all thrilled to be able to share more about the MPH program and the various options with you today. In today's session, we'll talk more about those different options for the MPH program, the different modalities and fields of study that we offer, as well as talk a bit about the curriculum and eligibility requirements, as well as some additional kind of features of the program and things to think about when you're applying. And we will have plenty of time for Q&A at the end of the session. And throughout the session, if you have questions that you either have already thought about asking, or maybe as we go along something comes up that you're wondering about, feel free to use the Q&A feature in Zoom at the bottom of your screen to submit questions. And we're going to hold all questions until the end of the presentation, but feel free to go ahead and submit throughout. And before we get started, just curious where everybody is joining us from today. So if you can just take a moment and type where you're currently located in the chat. So another fellow Bostonite, California, Michigan, LA, Nigeria, South Germany, Brazil, Canada, India, Connecticut, Saudi Arabia, LA, Ghana, Indonesia, Brazil. Wow, so we really have a variety of places represented today. That's great, and thank you all for making the time to attend this today live with us. Wow, so Japan as well, Taiwan. It's a little rainy in Boston, but not too cold. It's actually pretty nice fall weather. Okay, so now we're going to move on to just talking about the different modalities for the MPH program with the next slide. So I think it's helpful to think about the MPH program and the options in various buckets. So we offer a residential or on-campus program option within what we call the MPH 45, which is a one-year program, and the MPH 65, which is a 1.5-year program. We also offer a hybrid program over 2 years, which involves some on-campus coursework and some online coursework. And then we also offer a relatively new, fully online program as well that is completed over 2 years. And I don't know if this is just my screen, but it's cutting off for me, the slide. Can some others on my team see if they see the rows that show up below fall start or June start?
I can see others.
Okay, so maybe that's just my view problem. Always something with Zoom. So feel free to jump in then if I miss anything. But as I mentioned, the MPH 45 is an on-campus program. It's primarily designed for students who either hold a prior advanced degree, a doctoral degree or master's, or those who have at least 5 years of work experience. And we'll talk more about eligibility in more detail later on in the session, but this is just to kind of touch on at the beginning. Again, it's a full-time program for the most part. We do have part-time options for some students. It's fully on campus. We offer this in a variety of different fields of study, and most fields of study start in the fall with a summer start option for 2 of those, CLE, clinical effectiveness, and QM, quantitative methods. And as I mentioned before, it is a 9-month program, 1 year for most fields of study. The MPH 65 is our other on-campus offering, and that is geared more towards students who have between 2 to 5 years of work experience. We offer that in 4 fields of study. Again, it's also mostly a full-time program on campus and also a fall start. So students start in the fall, continue with coursework through the year. During the summer, they engage in a summer practicum intensive experience, and then they return for a second fall semester and finish the program in December. And MPH EPI, as our hybrid offering, is part-time. It's over 2 years. Students start on campus for 3 weeks of a June session, their first June, and then continue on during the academic year, taking online courses, return for a second June 3-week term, and then take online courses through a second academic year before returning to campus in May and presenting their practicum project and graduating with the MPH students in that year's class. Students in the MPH Gen, again, it's a part-time 2-year program. It is fully online. It is only offered in the generalist field of study. Likewise with the hybrid program, that's only offered in the epidemiology field of study right now, so it's important to keep that in mind. And this does have a fall start, and it's, again, part-time over 2 academic years. And right. So for the MPH program is it's a school-wide degree program. It's based out of the Office of Educational Programs, and each field of study is also affiliated with an academic department. The MPH is a practice-oriented degree versus a research degree. So no matter which MPH program option that you choose or your modality, all MPH students receive the same core foundational training, including core biostatistics and epidemiology courses, a foundational public health knowledge course, as well as 5 other courses in other foundational public health core competency areas. But then each student selects a field of study to pursue, and within your program, you then have certain field of study requirements that you must fulfill as part of the program as well, and that enables you to specialize and to also explore an area more in depth. And all MPH students, no matter their field of study, also have some room available in their schedule for electives, and you can take those in a variety of different areas. Sorry, actually just go back just for a minute. So sometimes students are set on doing the MPH 45 or the MPH 65, but they might not know which field of study that they want to do. And my recommendation is to take a look at the curriculum guide, look at the required courses for the fields of study that you're interested in, and then look up the course descriptions in the Harvard course catalog and read through those and think about what are the skills that you're hoping to gain by doing your MPH, and are those courses of interest to you? Do they seem like they'll be offering the types of skills that you're hoping to gain? That might be a good way to help decide which field of study to apply to. So you can only apply to one MPH program option and field of study at a time. So you cannot apply to more than one. So you do have to make that decision at the time of application. In addition, all MPH students have what we call the practicum requirement, applied practice experience and integrated learning experience. It's a really great opportunity to apply the skills that you're learning in the classroom to a real-world public health issue or problem or project at a host organization. And I always like to encourage applicants to review the list of prior practice sites and projects that are listed by field of study on the website with the link here. And I think that gives an exciting look into what you might be doing as an MPH student. Again, that can also be a useful tool for helping you decide between or among the different fields of study, and just to help you get excited about what you might be doing in the applied space of the MPH program. The MPH program at the Harvard Chan School is the largest degree program at HSPH, with over 650 students currently enrolled across 10 fields of study. We also have about over a third of our students are international. We have over 60 different nationalities represented, a wide variety of US states, and it's one of the strengths that we hear often from students about our program, just the variety and diversity of students from all across the country, as well as the globe. So now I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Megan Karen, to talk a bit more in depth about the eligibility requirements. And recognizing that some of this is a little complicated, so we're happy to answer specific questions you might have if you wanted to continue to use the Q&A feature, and we'll revisit that at the end of the session.
Thanks, Emily. Hi, everyone. I'm just going to go over some of the eligibility requirements to apply to these various fields of study and programs. So the eligibility varies a bit, whether you're applying to the MPH 45 or the MPH 65, as well as by field of study. I'll go over the MPH 45 first. So for the clinical effectiveness field of study, a doctoral degree is required in order to be eligible to apply. This field of study is a bit unique because it's targeted towards clinicians in the Boston area at Harvard teaching hospitals. And it also requires students to apply and participate in the 15-credit summer program in clinical effectiveness, or PCE, in the summer before their clinical effectiveness MPH begins. And so that does require a doctoral degree to apply. For all of our other fields of study, you can have a doctoral or a master's degree. And for the occupational and environmental health and quantitative methods fields of studies, you could also apply if you're in your post-primary clinical year, if you're a current medical school or dental school student. For the global health, health and social behavior, health management, and health policy fields of study, everything for the two fields of study above hold true, with the addition that if you have a bachelor's degree plus 5 or more years of relevant work experience, you would also be eligible to apply. And for the global health field of study specifically, applicants are going to be considered the strongest if they have significant and sustained global health work experience before applying. And then for our hybrid MPH in epidemiology and online MPH generalist 45 credit degrees, you would need to have a doctoral degree, a master's degree, or a bachelor's degree with 5 or more years of relevant work experience. You would not be able to apply if you are a current medical or dental school student. And in general, just guidance for any of the fields of study that do accept master's degree for eligibility. These applicants that are going to be the strongest would have a master's degree plus 2 or more years of relevant work experience. Next slide. And so then for the MPH 65 fields of study, we do have 4 fields of study in the MPH 65. And you would be eligible to apply with a bachelor's degree and between 2 to 5 years of contiguous full-time work experience in public health. We recognize that a lot of applicants to the MPH 65 may have experience with internships or with work that they conducted during their bachelor's degree. And this can be valuable and help strengthen the application, but it would not count towards the work requirement that you would need in order to be eligible for this degree. And that work requirement of 2 to 5 years would be 2 to 5 years at the time you start the program, not at the time you apply. And just general guidance would be that for the fields of study that are offered in both the MPH 65 and MPH 45 degree, if you do qualify, if you are eligible for the MPH 45 version, that is the degree that you should apply to. And if you're not, of course, if you meet the 65 eligibility requirements, you would apply to that instead. So as Emily said, we are here to answer questions. We hope that these charts kind of make eligibility a little more manageable, but if students have or applicants have unique circumstances that they want to talk with us about, you can feel free to reach out to our office about that. Next slide. I'm going to turn it back over to Emily now for some application requirements.
Thanks, Megan. Now we just want to briefly touch on some of the application requirements, and you may have seen these already posted on the website or during the admissions info session. We use the SOFIS application, which is the Central Application Service for all schools and programs of public health. The statement of purpose and objectives, I feel, is maybe the most key component of your application. It's really your opportunity to tell the admissions committee why you're interested in getting your MPH degree, why Harvard, and also how Harvard's MPH program in your chosen field of study is going to help you achieve your future personal and professional career goals, as well as become a leader in the field of public health. We are not requiring nor reviewing standardized test scores this admission cycle. However, some quantitative preparation and facility is a necessary element of success in the program. So we are asking applicants at the end of their statement of purpose to include a very brief statement, less than 200 words, just providing some more information about your quantitative background, whether that's a class or two that you took in undergrad or grad school. Maybe you did a statistics course as a non-degree student later in your professional career, or you've been engaging in certain research or other quantitative-based projects through your employer. Those are all things that you could talk about in that space in lieu of test scores. And we do ask that if you have already taken the GRE, please do not include your quantitative score in that statement because we are not reviewing scores this cycle. You are also required to submit 3 letters of recommendation or reference. We encourage you to ask people to be your recommenders who know you well, who know why you want to pursue an MPH, and can talk about your ability to be a leader in the field of public health. We very much prefer recommenders who know you well versus kind of big name recommenders or maybe somebody who has a high profile. I think it's always a good strategy as well to ask your recommenders if they can write you a strong letter of recommendation, not just a letter of recommendation, but a strong letter, and to also share your statement of purpose with them before asking them to write a letter, as well as a updated version of your CV or resume. So in addition, just the other kind of basic components, CV or resume, all of your transcripts, and for any of you out there who may have taken courses as a non-degree student at the Harvard Chan School, make sure that you also request that transcript as well, just like any other transcript, because we can't see those even though we're at HSPH, and there is a SOFIS application fee. And also important to note that the application deadline is December 1st. So that means that you must click submit in SOFIS on December 1st. And it is helpful to make sure you're requesting your letters of recommendation and your transcripts and all of that well in advance in order to make sure that your application is complete close to that December 1st deadline. So just a couple of, I guess, additional resources or highlights. So the rest of Virtual Visit Week programming will include additional sessions that are offered by some of the academic departments that have SM programs, MPH programs, as well as the MPH and epidemiology is having an info session, I think later in November as well. And then the recording is also posted on the Virtual Visit Week site. There's a link, I think, on there right now. The MPH Generalist info session will be tomorrow, noon to 1 p.m. And Again, all of these sessions are recorded and will be posted on the website, but it might take a couple of weeks for some of these because of the time it requires for closed captioning. So if you don't see it within the next few days, just know that it will be there within a few weeks, and you can always reach out to any of us in the meantime. The financial aid website is a really good resource as well to talk more about the types of financial aid offered and various resources, as well as an overview of the tuition and fees. And I also always like to highlight the graduate employment outcomes link below. That is some data prepared by our Office of Career and Professional Development that surveys recent graduates, and they provide an overview of employment status, kind of salary ranges, sample employers and titles, and kind of also a look at where graduates end up by employment sector or industry, which I think can just be helpful overall when thinking about what also might match your interests. So, overall, when kind of deciding which MPH program option to apply to, you do have a lot of things to consider. It is important to think about what modality you're looking for. Do you want that on-campus experience? Is that hybrid offering more in line with what you're looking for? Or is a fully online program what you're hoping to do so that you're able to continue working full-time as well on the side? And thinking about what fields of study that we offer then within those different modalities, and if those fields of study are of interest to you, if they align with what you're hoping to gain by doing your MPH, as well as your eligibility, since we do have various requirements. And again, we're happy to help clarify any of that because I know it's complex and it is it's a big program. It's a great program, and we hope that you'll consider applying. And I think now we're going to transition to more of the Q&A. So you can also see our various email addresses. At the end of the day, though, if you have a question and you email the MPH mailbox and it happens to be at B, we'll make sure it gets rerouted. But just feel free to reach out. We're happy to talk more over email, or many of us have Calendly links that we are able to offer to set up meetings with prospective applicants as well.
Great, thank you. Sorry, I was just finishing up answering some questions that are coming through. So we have a few questions that I'm going to read out and we can answer live. And if folks have additional questions, type them into the chat. And if it's a quick answer, we've been answering them, we've typed them. And if it takes a little longer or seems to be applicable to numerous people, I'll read them out and we can answer them together. So the first one is pretty quick, but seems like it might be helpful. So for the statement of purpose, is the quantitative statement 200-word limit included in the overall 600-word limit?
That's a great question. It's not. So it's you have the 600-word limit for your statement of purpose and objectives that that you're able to use to talk about your interest in public health and why Harvard's program and why you're a certain field of study, and that's your space. The 200 words to talk about your quantitative background, that's in addition to the 600 words, and it really can be pretty brief. Also, we're not going to cut it off at 200 if it's 201 or 601. That's okay, but please do try to stay within those guidelines.
And another question, how accommodating is the 1-year MPH program to the schedule of medical students? So for example, if we need to go back to our medical school during our MPH year, do we, or leave of absence year? I'm not sure about the parenthetical there, but basically how accommodating is the MPH program to the schedule of medical students?
I can start that one, and then maybe Emily can fill in if she has more to say. Our expectation, if you're in a US accredited med school, is that you could come in the middle of your time after your clinical year, which for almost all med schools in the US is after your third year. So we then have you taking a leave of absence from your home institution, and you're pretty much with us all year, like just as if you were a full-time, I mean, you would be a full-time student at our school, and then you return to your med school for your fourth year. I think I hear in that question, like, do I have a lot of other visits that I'm doing? And I don't know if you were thinking of a later time with interviews or something. And I will say that there's like an expectation of attendance in some classes. So I would think that we can be flexible, and at the same time, we would, if you were in the in-residence program, which is the only one that really works with the MD and MPH concept, that I think we would be expecting to see you most of the time with some flexibility. I'm not sure if there's other parts embedded in that question.
I think that really covers it. And sometimes we do hear from med students and they're worried about taking the year off. And what we have heard from past students is that it doesn't seem to impact their ability then to resume their medical studies after their MPH year. They're able to quickly kind of get back into the swing of things with clinicals, and it is a good and worthwhile experience. And it's okay to take that time off and that year away from med school. And we also, during the year, we try to offer some specialized programming for students who are currently in med school or dental school and doing their MPH. We have an alumni panel, talks about interviewing for residency. We also have a career workshop that we collaborate with our colleagues in the Office of Career Professional Advancement to offer an elevator pitch type session that's specifically for MD and PH students. So it is a really unique cohort in our program.
Great, thank you. Another question that we have is to talk about the difference between the clinical effectiveness and quantitative methods field of study, specifically the curriculum of those two programs, and what the difference is between them.
I can start that one as well. So someone has done some good reading if they're asking that question, because the truth is the curriculum on the two of those are super similar. To come into the clinical effectiveness, as Megan was saying earlier, you must begin with the summer program in clinical effectiveness that begins in July and is an intensive 15 credit kickoff that is an intense first summer. And then there are a few different variations of how you can finish from there. Like you could be doing one that is focused on summers. You could be doing one during the academic year, either full-time or part-time. The quantitative methods has the same flexible choices of what you're doing with kind of upper level, both they're very like biostats and epidemiology focused courses in both fields of study. The QM one, you can begin in the fall. You can also begin in the summer, but you're not taking as many courses in the summer, nor is it, so it's not as intense a kickoff. And so the curriculum is, those are the primary differences in the curriculum, is how that kickoff happens, that you must begin in program and clinical effectiveness for one. The other difference, it involves some of that eligibility that you saw when Megan was going through that. So really, in order to be in the clinical effectiveness program, you must be a clinician. Okay.
Another question that we have, which is also about differences, so I'll do this one next, is the major difference between the MPH and the Master of Science degree in terms of candidates' backgrounds.
I'm not as, I guess, prepared to speak on the exact difference between candidate backgrounds, but in terms of the difference in the programs, Again, the MPH is a practice-oriented degree versus the SM programs are research-oriented degrees, and all MPH students have this core MPH coursework that's required, plus the practicum, and that is, it's different from what the SM students do, and instead of the practicum, they have a thesis requirement. I also think that there are some SM programs that don't require as much work experience, but the MPH program, the faculty feel really strongly that students are stronger contributors in the classroom when they have at least 2 years of work experience prior to starting the MPH program. And again, that work experience doesn't have to be by the time of application. It just has to be by the time of matriculation. You need to have 2 years by the time that you would start the MPH program.
And I just want to add one other piece onto that with the, so at Harvard, as you may come to realize, it's a kind of decentralized place in how it is run, and the SM degrees are granted throughout different departments. So the criteria to get into those for the work experience of the candidate or other experiences factored in will even vary within that. So for example, like if you're looking at the SM program in health policy and management, you must already be a medical doctor who's going on to do a certain kind of research. If you're looking to be an SM in the global health department, I believe you can come in straight out of undergrad, which, as Emily just said, is not an option within the MPH. The MPH, we have people, we are not, if you are in college now, we'd love that you're thinking about it now, and we'd love to have you gather some work experience that you would then come and apply in a couple of years. But we currently have that piece. And as Emily just said, both the professors feel like it's a big difference in the classroom, but our practice partners for the practicum setting also feel like it's a complete game changer, the kind of experience that the students bring into the MPH.
Great, thank you. The next question, actually, there are two questions, so I'll ask them both back to back about the practicum. So the first question is, does Chan help with finding a field practicum site, particularly if I'm interested in finding a field practicum overseas?
I can start that one too. So we have a great field office that is headed by Stacy King. And I think there's a link in the slides that shows this. You can go and see where past students have all done their practicum placements, and you can see abstracts of the kind of work that they've done. And I think that can also just be helpful if you're not sure which kind of field you want to go into. So there is a network of Career Connect, like websites that help people find things. We have virtual fairs that match practicum sites up with people, and this exists. The help finding your practicum exists no matter which modality you are pursuing your practicum.
Great, thanks, Anne. And the next question, which I actually can answer, and then if anyone else has things to add in, but if enrolled in the MPH Generalist online program, will there be remote applied practice experiences available, or would we need to choose a local organization to partner with? So I'm the program manager for the MPH Generalist, so I work with a lot of the MPH Generalist students. So I'll just say that we both are an option. So you're going to work, as Anne said, with the field practice office, with Stacy King, and also with your practicum course instructor to find your practicum. A lot of students do work with local organizations where they are living, but there is the option to also work remotely on an experience if that's something you want to do. So we'll switch gears from the practicum to another question. How open is the program to students from non-science backgrounds, but with strong public health work experience? What would you recommend highlighting in the statement of purpose for such candidates? Is being from a non-science background a hurdle to apply or to be considered for application review?
I think one of the really great things about public health is that it is such a broad and diverse and vast field that you can really make the case for public health from a really wide array of educational and professional backgrounds. We see students who come from teaching, who come from, I've seen engineering, also community centered work. It doesn't just have to be strictly in the sciences space, especially for the MPH degree, as it is this practice oriented degree. And so as long as you're able to make the case for why you're interested in getting your MPH and why the particular field of study that you've chosen, it's okay to have a background or a degree that maybe isn't as common in public health. But we truly do see applicants from such a array of educational and professional backgrounds. And Anne, I don't know if you have anything else.
And I just want to also add on to say that connected to that, like we really don't have a preference as to what you studied as an undergrad. So if you were like an anthropology major or a Latin American literature major, like that is not better or worse than if you had been a public health major. So I think we are, and there's pros and cons in all different majors you may have had back in the day. So I think that's one other factor to keep in mind. This question also feels related to one other one that I read in the Q&A thing about someone who had a nursing degree and said they hadn't taken a stats course, and that's okay too. Like we want to know that you can do quantitative work, but we don't but we don't expect you to come in with a stats background, and we will teach you stats. So you will have that. But if you so I think you don't have to worry about not having it in your background, but you would therefore want to make sure in your application that you kind of gave us some other indication, which that math question now does, or that quantitative, to express some background that you have. So I think that's your other key. Separately to that other stats question, if you were coming and you were just worried, like I am worried about the biostats course here, sometimes people find it helpful to do some like non-credit or other kind of brush up of things before they come, although we also offer that as well.
Great. So we have a couple related questions kind of about what the time commitment looks like for the residential 45 or 65 programs, what time students have to do other things outside of classes. So I'm going to ask a series of questions on that theme. The first one is asking about the class schedule for the MPH 45 when you're fully on campus, and I assume full time, asking is it 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. or so on, kind of what can you expect?
I can start this one. So for the most part, the MPH 45 full-time experience on campus is geared basically between the hours of 8 and 5 for the most part, and the practicum courses tend to land in the evening. So it is, and without that, around that time, I think it's pretty much geared to the full-time student. It is less great if you are working and trying to fit it in different ways, because it's the kind of schedule that changes a lot, and like every 7 or 8 weeks courses change for us. So I think you mostly want to be like, this is what I am committing to if going for the full-time 45.
Great, thank you. And going along with that then, how much time would students have to dedicate to extracurriculars, research specifically, in this case, in the 45 credit program?
So pre-pandemic, I had this rule of thumb of feeling that when people were full-time students, that 10 plus hours a week of something else became sort of where I saw like a tipping point of people's balance, feeling like I have too much going on, like if I'm trying to work and do it in different ways. That's been a little harder to read in recent times because, things like, I think we see more people right now continuing to work part-time with past jobs, so it's a little bit harder to read, but I would say that I'm going to stick with my old rule of thumb on 10 hours.
Great. And we had another very related question. The answer may be exactly the same, but do you recommend having a job while you're doing your MPH 65, or to just focus on the MPH 65 over the 1.5 years? So I'm assuming the 10-hour rule still applies. Does anything change for a 65 credit student?
Well, that's a great question. I think that, the 65, so, in one case, you're trying to get 45 credits in 9 months, and then the other one, you're trying to get 65 credits over a year and a half. So there's a little bit more of a minor cushion ability in that. So I think, and you're with us longer, so I could see that it's okay to do that. It certainly helps people also to support themselves and to be doing something. I would still gravitate towards saying 10 hours, and I generally would advise a student to do something that either is good for you professionally or is a complete break for you right when you're doing it, like something very different. And it would matter if you could either do it remotely or somewhere close to school with a flexible employer, rather than like, I have to commute far to a rigid employer. I think commuting far to a rigid employer isn't a great pair up with grad school.
Just to add on to that, students sometimes are able to find different job opportunities, helping professors with research projects or other on-campus opportunities that then tend to be more understanding of the time constraints with your schedule, with the daytime class schedule, and that sometimes works out a little bit better. Or for MPH 65 students, being a TA or a teaching fellow for a course or two in their second year is also sometimes a good option to have the ability to work and bring some extra money, but also to not feel like you're overextended at another employer.
And also, while we're just thinking about flexibility in coursework, I want to reference back several questions ago when you asked about clinical effectiveness and quantitative methods and the curriculum difference. For anybody who's also thinking like, flexibility and those fields of study, I would say don't forget to take a look at the MPH and epidemiology program, which is a part-time over 2 years. I know Megan covered this, but where basically people are in person for 3 weeks in June, and then they are doing part-time coursework in epidemiology over 2 years. And then they come back in the second June, and they have the option if they want to come in our January winter session too. So that is another way to get those competencies, yet with a more flexible way to do it and continue to work.
Great. Another question we have, can work experience also include volunteering in different roles, especially if you are coming from a non-science background and have an interest in public health? So I assume this means work experience to be eligible for the 45 or 65 credit program.
So I think this depends on what you're referring to, but in general, if you so I'm going to assume here that this person might be interested in applying to the MPH 65. So if you graduated from college in 21 and have been working in something that has no connection to public health, but you have like a 3-hour-a-week volunteer commitment in a public health situation, that likely would not make you eligible for this. And even if you were not kind of viewed ineligible, I think when the reviewers look at the different pieces that they're evaluating on, they would be looking at the work experience component, and something like that small wouldn't really contribute, like they would not enhance your application. I think that is different than if you were in some kind of full-time setting in which somehow you have been volunteering, and then Yeah, so that would, it would be, I think it would be like if you were in some full-time commitment that had you in some kind of volunteer relationship, which I think that would be different.
And another question we have coming in, are MPH students allowed or encouraged to take courses outside their field of study or even outside of the School of Public Health?
A great question. So for students in the MPH 45 and MPH 65 residential on-campus options, they are able to take elective courses at any of the academic departments across the Harvard Chan School, and they're also able to cross-register for courses at the other Harvard graduate schools or MIT. And cross-registration can be a really great experience. It's a neat feature of the on-campus program. Sometimes it can be a little logistically challenging, but typically students who want to cross-register are able to do so, at least for a couple of courses. We also have on the MPH website a list of just a very sample overview list of cross-register courses recent MPH students have taken. Because our students take so many cross-registered courses, we had to narrow the list down to 3 or more MPH students enrolled. So you're just seeing some of the more popular offerings, but these are all courses that have worked with MPH student schedules in the past few years and that were well received. And it's a great opportunity to get to learn from students in other programs and to really see how they might approach a problem or something in the classroom different through maybe a law lens or an education lens versus your public health lens.
Great, thank you, Emily. Another question that we have is around electives and the credit cap. So this person has clearly done their research here. In the fall semester, if the fall semester consists of 24 credits with just core courses and course specifics, I guess, field of study courses, how strict is the maximum 30 credit per semester rule? My ideal electives are all in the fall semester, and I am assuming this person is interested in the one-year program.
So it's an interesting comment on the 30 credit because the actual cap per semester is 27.5 credits. And I will say that we have put a lot of thought into that. A few years ago, we went like unlimited, and then we found that students, students love to learn, and they were signing up for a lot kind of at their own expense. And the faculty were like, what's going on? Everybody seems so tired. And so we put that cap in place, and there are certain times in which, especially if there's a certain field of study that requires, like has a lot of fall requirements, that there might be a little more latitude in some petition process that allows you to take a little bit more, like one extra course, bringing it to 30. It is not, we're not like going like, oh, you can take 35, because we find both that there's like sort of a hoarding element that isn't great, but also it wasn't a good experience for students.
Thank you, Anne. Next question is about someone who has the international equivalent of a dental doctoral degree, and they're saying that would make them eligible for the MPH 45, which is correct. However, I am a fairly recent graduate and would like to spend more time at your school to gain more experience. Would it be okay to apply to the MPH 65, or would you recommend I still apply for the MPH 45? So
I saw this question. I was so glad that someone asked this question, because I have a very strong opinion about this answer, which is that I personally feel like if you are eligible for the 45 through your advanced degree or through your work experience, that you will be better served and likely happier if you apply to the 45. We see people thinking what you're thinking, which is that like I want to come and spend more time, and it is a great place, and we think you will enjoy your time. But then when you come, it is not an insignificant additional cost in your life, like an opportunity cost of both the tuition, the time that your housing is in Boston, the time that you're out of the workforce. And at a certain point, it seems that people come and they think this, and then they see their peers who are in the same exact classes, like you're taking some of the same classes at the beginning. And so it seems a better pathway if you're eligible to the 45 to go for the 45. I think it's something it may be hard to picture too, which is that literally if you're like applying to, let's not even use the advanced degree example, but if you have 5 years of work experience and you're thinking about, should I get the MPH 45 in health and social behavior, or should I get the MPH 65, and you're right on the brink, you should know that you're literally taking the same biostats and epi classes that all the MPH students are. Then you're taking your field of study classes with the people who are doing the 45 and the 65. So the 65 does allow you obviously a little more time to be doing some things or explore in other places. But historically we see that people think they want to do that, but then they really don't want to do it. And also, if you're on the borderline of work experience and you think one is easier to get into than the other, I would recommend not playing that game and not trying to hedge your bets that way, and instead applying for the one that you are eligible for. That is you should look at what you're eligible for, and that will be a better pathway when applying. I have a very strong opinion on that
one. Thank you, Anne. That helpful to know. I think we just have time for a few more questions. So one of them is about the clinical effectiveness program, and then I'll do a last question about the global health field of study. So for the clinical effectiveness program, is it relevant for students who have just received their MD?
Not usually. So the CLE program is geared more towards physicians who have already completed their residency and have a home hospital or institution that can support your enrollment in the program as well. So they're typically in fellowships. You can always reach out to the PCE program directly to kind of get their thoughts, but in general, we would encourage somebody who is interested in the CLE field of study and the types of skills and training that you would receive, but maybe you're not eligible for CLE, to really look at QM, because the training, the curriculum, as we talked about earlier, it's very, very similar. There are just some differences in those eligibility requirements.
Great, thanks, Emily. And then the last question that we have time for right now is about the global health field of study. So this person is a doctor who has 3 years of clinical experience working in a general hospital in the UK, and they're asking if this would count as enough experience for the MPH 45 global health field of study.
And I don't know if you have more to add on that one, but so from my understanding, the global health field of study, they really want to see more significant and sustained global health experience that relates more towards the field and often middle-income countries, developing countries. And I don't know what your thoughts might be as well. Also encourage you to reach out to our colleagues in the Global Health Department for some of their thoughts, because it does somewhat depend on if you've been doing certain maybe global health focused research or different projects, even though you're based out of the UK. But I also would turn it over to Anne for some more thoughts.
I would say it does seem that the global health admissions reviewers are looking for some like more specifically at that work experience component. And so if you don't feel like you've been doing public health work in a global setting, that will, I think, vastly decrease your likelihood of having a successful application. Is that fair statement?
I know we're also kind of coming up on time, but real quickly, I wanted to add that so sometimes students are really interested in global health, but they just don't quite have the required experience, but they pursue one of the other fields of study, and then they are able to take some of their elective courses within global health. So that just something to keep in mind. I think now we are going to wrap up this session, but we have reserved the next half hour on our schedules to offer anybody who wants to attend very informal breakout sessions. We're going to have one for the residential on campus MPH 45 and MPH 65, and one for the hybrid MPH and epidemiology program, as well as the fully online MPH generalist program. So we will go into those sessions. One of my colleagues will put the Zoom links in the chat for us, and I'll stay on until everybody signs off to give you time to click on that if you would like. Again, it's very informal. We just know that there are a lot of questions and we don't always have time to get to them. So we decided just to offer this opportunity for anybody who might want to stop by.
And I have one other final point that I want to make here, which is I saw a couple of things about like the verification time or getting my transcripts in later. As you all know, the deadline is December 1st. It is truly an advantage to get it in early, and it is a disadvantage to get it in late, because if you submit really late and it isn't verified through SOFAS, it just can get stuck in a system and then it goes out to review later. That doesn't mean that everybody gets fair review, but I don't want you to be stuck without your transcript showing for people. That can just slow up a process. And so start early. That's my other last advice. Great.
So thank you so much for joining us today. And we hope you learn more about the MPH program and are thinking about applying either this cycle or in a future cycle. And again, feel free to reach out to any of us throughout the fall admission season, and hop on over to one of those breakout sessions if you would like. Thanks, everybody.